and education on energy. I'm Jill Horner. This is Comcast Newsmakers. With me is Pennsylvania State Representative Ron Miller. He is also the Majority Chairman of the House Environmental Resources and Energy Committee. Thanks so much for being with us.
Well, thank you.
You recently attended the National Conference of State Legislators and their Energy Forum. This brought together elected officials like yourself from across the country. But you say part of the reason to have this type of conference was to really have a base of knowledge when developing energy policy for the future.
Yes, what they found was that many legislators across the country that get assigned to serve on their committees that address energy do not have a sound background. So this conference was all purely technical. 4 days of how energy is developed and electricity, how it's produced, covered everything from nuclear, coal, hydro to wind, solar, and then it went into drilling and gas exploration and all those things. And it was purely technical. It's supposed to be followed up in October with 4 days in Washington, D.C. on basically energy policy.
How do you take this information and are you better able to create pieces of legislation because of this knowledge, because of this technical background?
Well, it certainly has to help because of the fact if you're talking about a nuclear power plant or, for example, the electric grid, if you understand how the electric grid operates and the steps that have been taken to make sure that it is a sound grid for distributing electricity,
and let's
it's
talk
helpful.
About the grid for just a second, because this summer marked the 10-year anniversary of the blackouts in the Northeast. Has the grid been improved to avoid situations like that in the future?
Yeah, we talk about smart grids now. There's been a lot of technology put into place. One of the major things that caused that massive blackout in 2003 was the fact that nobody could anticipate what was coming next and what the impacts on other sections of the grid were. There are now all kinds of technology. You know how the cell phones have changed and everything else. So communications, monitoring, everything is transmitted and it's very close to real time. So the operators of the grid can really monitor what's happening and be able to address concerns as they arise.
In addition to some of the upgrades in technology and monitoring, are there ways to better integrate things like alternative energy into the grid?
Well, that's one of the concerns we have. Alternative energies, wind, solar, one of the problems with them is they are not as reliable, let's say, as hydroelectric. You know, you have a hydroelectric plant, you can pretty much count on it producing electricity 24/7 every day of the year unless you put it down for maintenance. With wind and solar, they're variable. Some of the base load carried by hydro has now been shifted off of providing base load electricity to being backup to be able to provide the peaking for wind and solar when they are not producing. It's creating new issues for the grid. We're looking at even getting better. There's a project that was done in the Pacific Northwest where they actually help pay for improvements to your dryer, washing machine and dryer. And they could actually, when it was necessary, take your dryer. They didn't turn it off, but they stopped the heating cycle to conserve electricity. It continued to run, and maybe they needed a 5-minute delay in the consumption of energy. So smart technology is going to really help address these grid issues. They've come a long way. There's a lot more coming, and I just think it's important people aren't afraid of smart meters and smart technology that might be built into your appliances in your home.
Thanks so much for being with us.
Well, thank you.
We've been talking with Pennsylvania State Representative Ron Miller. I'm Jill Horner for Comcast Newsmakers.